What's up, beautiful people? This thing on. Right. My trusty little stand, now that I got one. Hang on. What's up, peoples? Oh, hi. Okay, over there. What's going on this evening? Yeah, so first off, I thought I would switch to evenings. Felt like, maybe noontime everybody was still kind of working, so nighttime seems to be a little bit more fun for people. What's up, Michelle? Hey. So I got some really fun questions tonight, and I switched up a couple more of the books too. So, which I'm going to keep doing, but just to give you a quick rundown. The trustee for agreements. Everybody knows how important that one is. Since we're talking about love and relationships, I thought Osho could shed a little light on the whole situation. The Palladian agenda for a little bit more of our galactic gangsta astral awareness. Along the lines of galactic, we're going to go with the starseed transmissions. This is another gnarly book. It feels like it's really old too. God, I don't even remember. I don't even know where this one came from. That's new. But Marianne Williamson apparently really liked it since she's quoted on the front. And this one, Your Book of Life, Akashic Records. So I thought that could, this is an amazing, badass book. Thought that could shed a little light. If you guys don't know about the Akashic Records, I know some of you guys for sure who are watching do. But quick rundown, the Akashic Records are basically a hall of records of all of your soul's existence and anything and everything that ever happened with your soul. I had an Akashic Records reading done once with my dad, actually. It was really super fun. With this woman who, after the reading, her phone number disappeared from my phone completely. And when I started my reading, we did a reading for me, a reading for my dad, and then we did a reading of our souls together. When we started my dad's, I completely passed out, like cold out hard, and then woke up right before she finished with mine. And then when she switched over to my dad, then, or switched over to me, then he fell asleep. So it was the weirdest, most bizarre experience. And yes, the information in it has continued to be quite accurate. She gave an array of stuff, and that was probably over maybe, I want to say 8 to 10 years ago now. So if you ever have a chance to get your Akashic Records reading done with somebody who's legit, though, there's a lot of people who say that they're reading the Akashic, and it's just find somebody who you resonate with. Let's just put it that way. So we're going to continue with Louise Hay, Millionaire Mind, my favorite, personal power and awareness, and all that fun stuff. And we got some cool questions that came through. One, how to stay positive when you reach that relationship plateau, because that happens. How do I get... I can read my own writing from this person. How do I get into a state of compassion more easily? What's up, Barry? What's up, Troy? Hey, guys. Thank you for that. You're welcome. How do I get into a state of compassion more easily? So we're going to cover that today. And my personal favorite was what definition does the universe have for relationships? I think that one could turn out to be quite interesting. And finally, is kind of vague, but fear of diving deeper into love. So, I don't know. I think maybe everybody can relate to that. I'm sitting on the floor again. Oh my God, and I had leg day today, so my legs are killing me. So let's see, let's dive in. First, does anybody, I didn't do this last time. So if anybody has any questions, and for those of you who are newer watching, it's called Tap In. It's a game I like to do. I started it in Sedona. I basically create an open sacred space to ask any of your questions or any that have come through in a private message earlier, and ask the books basically what the answer is, and from this array of beautiful selection here. So anything usually can come through. Usually it's actually pretty accurate. And it's all for the purpose of kind of tapping into your intuition a little bit more. So if anybody has any questions right now, then feel free, that you want me to ask any of the books, then feel free to type it in, or I'm just going to go with the questions that already came through, and I'll keep an eye on that. I just remember a lot of comments came through last time, and I think I may have missed like 1 or 2 questions. So, what's up, Maria, beautiful sister? How are you, gorgeous? Okay, so we're going to go with the first question, which was how to stay positive when you're when you hit the relationship plateau. I want to ask, I'm going to go with Barbara Hand Clow and the Pleiadian Agenda, because this is an amazing book. And those of you who are new too, I just literally kind of hold the question in my mind and then just let the book open wherever it's going to go. And that's how we come up with the answer, actually. So, how to stay more positive when you hit a relationship plateau. Okay. And so again, I just clear the space and ask for all my guides and support team and everything to just create a sacred, I just kind of do like a little bit of a prayer and set an intention of a sacred space around here. And all of you watching. How to stay positive when you hit the relationship plateau. Okay. Let's see, where do I want to go? So the answer. All you need to do is master a simple paradigm. You do have free will on your planet because certain teachings and events occur no matter what, and then intelligences who do not want you to be free can only overlay these big events. Okay, and again, we're talking about how to stay more positive when you hit a relationship plateau. How to stay positive. Okay, so paradigm. Feel free on your planet. Okay. You must learn to feel how and when you are overloaded so you do not respond to lies when you're getting impulsed. I'm going to read that again. Relationship plateau. You must learn to feel how and when you are overlaid so you do not respond to lies when you get impulsed. You can feel truth in your hearts, and your hearts are freed when your mind is clear and you can observe the manipulations that are occurring. Interesting. So what I'm getting intuitively is if the plateau is a perspective. The plateau, what I mean, okay, so, and I'm also getting, like, maybe some people are like, what the heck is the relationship plateau? So taking a quick step back, when you'll reach a plateau in anything, right? It's when you're climbing and climbing and climbing, you're doing all this stuff and you've got motivation and you've got excitement, and in relationships, maybe you've got, all the chemicals in your brain are still going, the endorphins and the serotonin and dopamine and all that fun stuff. And then it kind of reaches the top. You get to the top of the hill and you're like, oh, well, now it's not so exciting. Like, now it kind of like tapers off. It like reaches that like plateau, right? And knowing, usually that can be when, some people are like, oh, do we want to stay in this relationship? Do we not want to stay in this relationship? Is this as fun as we want it? All kinds of different things can go through your mind when you hit a plateau. In business, it can be, I don't know, that's a whole different topic. I don't want to segue, but ultimately what I think this is also saying is if it's a mindset of a plateau, one, if you know that you're going to reach a plateau, then you kind of know what you're going to expect. You know that you're going to reach a feeling that like all of a sudden is kind of Hey, Richard, what's up? How are you? Good to see you on here. Thank you for tuning in. So reaching the plateau, yes, knowing what you're going to expect, but it can really just be a mindset. You can either let it stop you or not. And so what I'm getting with this as far as lies, it's like, what are the lies that we tell ourselves in our mind? What are the lies that we come up with to get us stopped? And so when it says you must learn how to feel and learn how to feel, learn to feel how and when you are overlaid and do not respond to lies when you are getting impulsed. To me, that just says basically know when you're hitting the plateau and know that your mind is going to come up with all kinds of reasons to stop you. So let's see, manipulations and the manipulation. Yeah, so you know in your heart of hearts that your hearts are freed when your mind is clear and you can observe the manipulations that are occurring. So we kind of screw our own minds. Like we can manipulate ourselves really easily with our own mindset, with our own just perspectives, all that. And so that's what I got from this. Is that reaching a plateau is a perspective. And you can manipulate yourself into believing that it's going to affect you or not. So nothing is random or accidental. Nothing. Look at it this way. A really big event, such as Christ's birth, occurs and people feel it has a real meaning. The event is then severely distorted and made into a cultural obsession. The controlled forces constantly repeat the part of the story that satisfy the longing of people for freedom from evil. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm not going to touch that literally. Lies are incessantly repeated about Christ, but people are so hungry for the real story that they swallow the lies like hungry parrots. The false story is repeated until even the liars can't remember the truth. The obsession for the truth is constantly placated, and you can run over in circles like mindless rats seeking something. So rather than taking that literal perspective on that one, when it comes to relationship plateau, yeah, again, it's just, for me, it's the lies that you tell yourself in your mind that continue, that either get you stopped or keep you stopped, and how you're manipulating it, and the false story, and repeating it, and searching and searching. So what you seek is then you're going to automatically find. So if you're seeking for, if in seeking for the plateau and understanding that you're going to hit a plateau, if you are like, oh, well, every time I hit a plateau, then that's going to feel like crap and I'm going to get stopped, then sure enough, you're going to. Or if you're seeking for something negative to show up, then it's going to show up. That's kind of what I got on that one. Okay, I want to check in. Does anybody have any questions? Awesome, awesome. Hey, Pamela. What's up, girl? Okay. How do I get into a state of compassion more easily? Was the next question. How do I get into a state of compassion more easily? Let's take it to Osho. How do I get into a state of compassion more easily? How do I get into a state of compassion more easily? It says, it is said that when Muhammad heard for the first time, of course it is a parable, when he heard that a messenger from God was standing and telling him to recite the name of God, recite his glory, the word Quran means recite. That's where the name Quran has come from, because the first thing that Muhammad heard was recite. He was very puzzled, and he said, how to recite? I don't know. And the angel said, that's why. Recite, because those who know, they cannot recite. And Muhammad said, I'm very illiterate, and I don't even know language rightly. I cannot write, and I cannot read. The angel said, precisely, that's why I said recite. Because those who know and can read and can write, they are lost in their knowledge. You are pure in this moment. Recite. That's really beautiful. The angel said, I'm going to read it again, precisely, that is why I say recite. Because those who know and can read and write, they are lost in their knowledge. You are pure in this moment. Recite. So it's like his whole perspective. He wasn't compassion. To me, that says having a, how do I get into a compassionate state more easily? Repeat your mantras. And to me, that's like, yeah, we have all this knowledge around, and we study and we study, and we still then either don't think that we know enough, or are constantly still, wanting to absorb. And yes, I think there's a healthy aspect to that, and at the same time, not to take the perspective of that you're ever finished learning, or that you're ever finished gaining more wisdom and gaining more insight, and yet keeping your mind open for always having something new to come in. Never getting stuck in the rigidness of like, nope, it only has to be this way, and I learned this, and now I'm stuck on this, and that's all that there is, and don't mess it up because I'm only here. Like, it's very rigid. That's what that says to me. And this is my own interpretation, and so I totally invite everyone to have their own interpretations as well, as I would hope everybody would. But yeah, not thinking that you know everything because you've been so well educated or so well studied, and so maybe having compassion on getting into a state of compassion more easily. It said more easily. I love how like we ask questions and they end up being literal questions, and then the answers, like I feel like the way that the universe answers things is really figurative. So that's what kind of takes the deciphering a little bit. But never thinking that you, having compassion on self, and always remembering that and always reciting that back to yourself, and never thinking that, never thinking that you're bigger than knowledge. Never thinking that you know more than knowledge, and there's always something new to learn, and you never know where it's going to come from. And I think, or I feel like you'll know when it feels congruent for you, if it's an actual feeling. If you say it's congruent because it's coming from a thought, then to me, I don't know if that's congruency. That's a different topic. But as far as compassion and getting to a state more easily, recite. Recite that you're compassionate. Recite what you want. Say what you want, not what you don't want. Go after what you want, not what you don't want. And when you say it, stick to it. Say it and then do it. It's like a ritual. I want to do another book on that question too, just to get a little bit more clarity. So how do I get into a state of compassion more easily? Let's do the 4 agreements, because I think that's what I'm feeling. I think everyone can appreciate that. So Getting into a state more easily. If someone is not treating you with love and respect, oh, here we go. It is a gift if they walk away from you. If someone's not treating you with love and respect, it's a gift if they walk away from you. That's really true. If that person doesn't walk away, you will surely endure many years of suffering with him or her. Walking away may hurt for a while, but your heart will eventually heal. Then you can choose what you really want. You will find that you don't need to trust others as much as you need to trust yourself to make the right choices. That's really powerful. Getting into a state of compassion more easily. Trusting yourself. It always comes down to trusting yourself. So maybe recite, I trust myself. And recite that every morning and recite that every night before you go to bed. And maybe even put an alarm on your phone. I'm a big fan of those. I like reprogramming my mind that way. I put a little alarm. It goes off every single day at the same time. I like 3:33. And it's like a little mantra alarm. So if that's something that you want to take on, maybe I trust myself and put that into an alarm in your phone. When you make it a strong habit, oh, here we go. Not to take anything personally, you avoid many upsets in your life. Your anger, jealousy, and envy will disappear. And even your sadness will simply disappear if you don't take things personally. I love that one. Why is that so difficult for everybody? I need that to be the next question. How do we not take things so personally? Because it's like everybody wants to make it about them. Somebody does something and it's like, oh my God, that like affected my whole life. And like now I'm upset about it. Like everybody always wants to make it about them. Unless, of course, there's something bad happening, in which case it's never about them, right? Or they did something. It's never their fault. It's really funny. Oh my gosh. Jealousy. Okay. And sadness. Everybody is, I'm just going to remind, everybody's always doing the best that they can with the tools that they were given. And usually how somebody is processing something or whatever someone's going through is like they've got 20 conversations in their head, and usually like a good 95% of them are all limiting beliefs, and they're telling them that they're lousy and not trusting themselves and not having compassion for themselves at all. And that's somehow the primary operating system the majority of the time. Like, I mean, I'm just being real. I'm not trying to over spiritualize this. I'm not trying to over, glamorize it by any means. But when we get really real, the majority of the time, like, we're not saying that nice of things to ourselves in our mind. We're just not. And that has to do with a lot of deeper, rooted programming and patterning, and how we perceive the world and what we say about it. But really getting to the root of like having compassion on that, on yourselves, on how you're perceiving things, and really listening to the things that you're saying in your own mind. And I feel like sometimes that's ego, yes. But everybody has voices in their head. Every single person. It doesn't make you schizophrenic. It doesn't make you crazy. And if you think that you don't, then the voice that is telling you, no, I don't have voices in my mind, is the one that is the voice in your mind. So, yes, observe your mind. Exactly. That's always the goal, is to be, thank you, Clifford, to always be the observer in any situation. That way there's no, again, we went over in like another, I don't remember which other one of the videos, but it was the villain, victim, hero triangle. And so if you're always in the center and you're always in the observer position, then you're never making yourself a victim. You're never making somebody else a villain. Like, you don't have to find a hero to then continue being like, and playing that whole sequence out. The goal is to be right in the center. And where was I going with that? There was a whole separate thought that I had. Disappear. Don't take things personally. So everybody primarily is operating, the majority, I'm going to make a bold judgment. The majority of people are operating from victim. Like if you really get super real and think about the things that you say to yourself when something happens, and think about then the responses, rather than being proactive, right? The majority of us are all reactive. Our emotions, it's instinctual. The goal is to be conscious of it, right? And having that awareness. But we're always taking things personally because we're emotional beings and we're here to experience emotions, absolutely, and experiencing them and then maybe letting them go, which is, it's easier said than done. Well, if I keep repeating that, then it will be. So it's easier done than said. But yeah, I think to just really being present with that and having compassion for yourself on how you're showing up to you. Like not always how you're showing up to other people, but how you show up to other people is how you're showing up to you. So how you treat other people is ultimately a really strong indication on how your internal processor is. So, I mean, bullying, for instance, it took me a minute, honestly, to get like really wrapped around this as far as like compassion and release like just the frustration of, and just anger on just somebody doing that. But at the same time, when I really got clear and having compassion for the person who's being the bully, yes, having compassion on the person who's being bullied, but then ultimately they're creating that to have that experience of being the victim, right? And then the bully is the villain, right? But the bully, whatever they're saying, however they're acting, whatever they're doing out towards whoever it is, their internal processor, their internal way of being to themselves is like 50 times worse. They're their own bully. They're their own villain. And that's what shifted for me, at least, on how to then have even more compassion for people, and even more compassion on somebody who is a bully, because it's like they've got to be really not nice to themselves inside. So it doesn't mean I'm condoning it. Doesn't mean anything like that. I really hope that that's clear, and I really hope that's clear. But it's just a way to, we're talking about compassion and how to have compassion a little bit more easily, and that's one of the lessons and the tools that worked for me, that I thought I would share with you guys, and coming from the 4 agreements. So cool. Thanks, Wesley. Appreciate that. Okay, so let's see the next question that we have. My favorite. What definition does the universe have for relationships? I think that's hilarious. And I'm going to ask the Akashic Records, just because I think we need a more soul, all of conscious, universal, everything answer for that one if we're asking the universe. Hang on. Clifford, remember Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now? Totally. Speaks on how, oh, that's a good book that I should bring out too. Speaks on how to not overthink, but to stay in the present. Mm-hmm. And again, yeah, you have to be really consciously aware of your own thoughts, and then the thoughts what those thoughts create as far as emotions. And emotions are usually the hardest thing to kind of unravel. Thoughts kind of disappear. But when they link and then create an emotion, then the emotion gets stuck in the body, and then the emotion gets stuck in the energy fields. It's just a lot harder once it turns into an emotion. But that's like a chicken or the egg thing. Which came first, the thought or the emotion? That's a different conversation. That's a whole other. Okay, so what definition does the universe give for relationships? Don't get in the emotion. I don't think, you can't not get into the emotion. If you do, you're not human. You can't possibly ever, I think I understand what you're saying. I think you're like, don't get caught up in the emotion, like with the pain body and all of that stuff, because that you can, people feed their pain body like a drug. I've done that. I've totally been guilty of that until I figured it out. And sometimes I have to catch it too, because you can sit there and like wallow in your stuff and you're like, wait a second, this is like feeding into the pain body. But I now, I think it's healthy to go into the emotion and feel it and experience it because it's coming up, and I don't believe in denying something that comes up. But I give, I don't want to say boundaries, but it's like a time limit, like an expiration. Be like, okay, I'm going to go into this for this amount of time and experience all of it, all of whatever the craziness and the hurt and the pain or the even like whatever it is, and experience all of it, and then be clear and be done and work through it, you know. But I don't necessarily agree with just not getting into the emotion, because I don't think that that's entirely possible. We're human. Acknowledge emotion. Exactly. You have to acknowledge it. It's there. And that's why we're human, and that's kind of what makes us amazing and beautiful about being human. So, okay, so what definition does the universe give for relationships? Okay, I have to show this because I'm not making it up. It says, I would like to move on to a different subject. Is that clear if I move that in there? I don't even know if everybody can see that, but that's really funny. I would like to move on to a different subject. In this linear, let's see, in time, linear in the Akashic Records, or does it reveal everything as happening simultaneously? Is time linear in the Akashic Records, or does it reveal everything as happening simultaneously? Time and relationships. We're going to read this anyway. Okay. Do we have any, what book is that? A really, really rare one. I don't know where to get this one. Your Book of Life, Accessing the Akashic Records. Gnarly book. Okay, as it has been stated, there are always 2 points of observation, micro and macro. Oh, here we go. This is the book's answer to relationships, or the universe answer to relationships, same thing. Time is observed as being linear in nature. Oh, we're getting into time. And yes, the macro and the micro, and what happens above, happens below. Okay. Time is observable as being linear in nature when you are searching for specific moments, such as past or future life influences. It is experienced as simultaneous when asking questions about soul groups, blocks of time, or interdimensional works. This is because your first experience of the Akasha will be in the concept of time that is most familiar and known to you. Then you will process the time concepts that allow you the most efficient use of your energy while in the records. You need only be familiar with the concept of simultaneous existence to access the records. You need only be familiar with the concept of simultaneous existence to access the records. Okay, sorry, I had a separate thought that has nothing to do with the question. Or maybe it does. I always get like really warm when I look at this book. Okay. The following understanding is important to reading and accurately interpreting the records. Time as a linear measure is used only by the collective human mind as it relates to the cellular portion of the mind, the human physical body. The collective animal mind, collective planet mind, and collective mineral mind are unaware of the concept of linear time because they have their own consciousness in simultaneous realities. I could read this book forever. But in relation to, well, in what the question is, definition to the universe in giving to relationships. I'm still reading the top. I'd like to move on to a different subject. I feel like it's really broad, and at the same time, I feel like we have relationships with multiple we have relationships with multiple people, but we have relationships with multiple things. And if we have, so it's a lot deeper of a conversation if we go into multiple dimensional experiences. That's like a really, really, really deeper conversation. My foot's falling asleep. I think time related to relationships. So let me see if I get it clear. Time related to relationships is we are connected to many things at the same time. Yeah, exactly. But okay, there's something else, because I don't have a clear enough thing yet. So hang on. Let me do this. I'm gonna flip it open again. So there's something with time for sure, and I'm gonna hold on to that. And I'm gonna ask. God, I always get really, really warm when I read this book. It's really bizarre. So there's something with time, and then I'm gonna ask it again, because it's like there needs to be more clarity with it. So then I opened up to the page that starts with unity. In the exact moment of self-realization, there is a sudden, unstoppable unity. Enlightenment brings unity. Unity is our natural state of being, a condition brought about through the closing of the gap between polar opposites. Here we go. Such as thought and feeling, event and response. What were we just talking about? About thought and feeling at the same time. I'm not making this up. I don't know if it'll let me show that. Thought and feeling at the same time. I don't know if you guys can see that, if it focuses or not. And when you have two different relationships, this is something that I had that I get into with, when I talk about relationships. But so if everybody knows what the Vesica Pisces is, right? You have a circle and another circle, and then when you bring them together, the center, like that kind of makes this like oval shaped, which is very feminine. That's ultimately the symbol of, yes, yin and yang. But you have a woman who is balanced in her masculine and feminine energy, and then you have a man who's balanced in his masculine and feminine energy, and you have two polar opposites, right? Yes, the yin and the yang. But then ultimately when they come together, those two energies and those two forces create a third energy. I call it the nexus. It could be called something completely different. I don't know. Connection is weak. I don't know what that means. Is it still on? Hopefully. Okay. Thank you. I call it the nexus, where you're creating a third energy. So you have polar opposites, you have this duality, but then you ultimately have this third energy. So what I got now is that's outside of space and time. That energy is, because it's not a tangible physical being, like, yes, let's say two people, a man and a woman, could come together and create a physical being, right? But then we have lots of different relationships. We have men relationships with men, and women have relationships with women, and you have relationships with spirit, you have relationships with nature and money and all these different things. And so you have two, if you just look at it as energies, you have one energy, you have two energies, and when they come together, you create a third energy. So you have duality coming together, creating, it's like a triality, but the third energy isn't It's not dense. So it's a concept that's not, I don't want to say concept. It's outside of space and time. So to me, then when we were talking about time, it's there, but it's not there. And the cool part about that is you get to create whatever you want to in it. It's like an energy source. So you get to put whatever you want into it. You get to program it with whatever you want, create whatever you want, pull from it whatever you want. It's an ongoing, just like a higher consciousness. It's an ongoing energy that is there solely for the purpose of your relationship. Okay, now I'm getting more clarity. It's solely there for your relationship. And I think that's a really key piece that most people get into relationships and they're like, oh, man and then woman, or, or whatever it is, or with relationship or whatever it is. Or with like money or nature or spirit or whatever that is. And it's not going into it consciously. There's not saying like, okay, I am my own vibration and I am going and merging with this other vibration. And that's going to now create a third vibration, a third consciousness, or call it whatever you want. Call it energy, call it consciousness, call it entity. It doesn't matter, but it's like a being. And it has its own personality. And you get to raise it like it has its own personality. So that's what that's saying to me, at least from what I'm getting here and what I'm getting. So I'm going to continue reading just a little bit. Does that make sense to everybody? Mineral mind, love it, seen, higher frequency. I think it is a is it a higher frequency? Love's Book of Answers. Wait for a better offer. Hang on. Giddy up. Yes, it could be a higher. Exactly. So let me finish reading this other part super quick. So all of the ideas and corresponding behaviors that exist in our mind/body are there as a result of our sensory encounters, our response, with external happenings/events. In our natural state, when we are physically, emotionally, and mentally balanced, the integration of sensory data lags behind the event only by a minutely discernible measure. In this state, event and response, thought and feeling, doing and being are experienced as simultaneous. That's awesome. That goes into what we were talking about as far as feeling and being present and not feeling too much and being the observer of it all at the same time, and it's all happening simultaneously. This is an individual who is unaware of the concept of self-consciousness, unsophisticated to the nth degree. This is a state of mind that is unified self-expression playing in the manifest world. Life is pretty simple to these individuals. Events, response, thoughts, feelings, doings, beings, male, female, mystery, and mastery. Unity. As we stand before. So it's going to go on, let's see. Bad news first. Something about the bad news first. On Earth, we become overwhelmed by the amount of information wanting to be integrated. It's a deeper conversation. So to me, that says, like how we were talking about with thoughts, feelings, and emotions being, I always say it all comes down to conscious connection. And conscious connection means, to me, being connected to your body, being connected to your thoughts, being consciously aware of the things that you're thinking and how that leads to what you're feeling, and then ultimately how you create or what actions you take out of that at the same time. So mastery on that level to me is just about being conscious of all of it and not being, knowing what you want to create and going into something consciously and creating it consciously, and knowing that you're creating an energy that's, yes, a higher vibration and a higher frequency. And you can, it's moldable. You can do anything that you want with it. And it's almost, it's kind of like raising a child. You get to raise it with the ideas that you want, the thought forms that you have, the patterns and programs. Like if you're not careful, you'll program it with patterns and programs that you're unconsciously operating from. But if you then become consciously aware of those patterns and programs that you have, then when you go into any relationship, you'll be fully conscious of how you're going into it, and you won't bring those patterns, programs, thoughts, all that stuff into it. I hope that makes sense, because that just started... I just started speaking a lot faster. So, it's all about conscious connection and relationship. Cool. Thumbs up. As you manifest frequencies. As you manifest your frequencies. Say again. Whose frequencies are we manifesting? Your own frequencies. I have one final question. Where are we at time-wise? Okay, cool. Those frequencies add change. Of course they do. Absolutely. Thoughts are frequencies, emotions are frequencies, and whatever you put into that energy, into that nexus, will create, that's what creates the chain. Well, I don't want to say... I get really literal with words, because you're not creating change, you're creating what you want. Hopefully. You have the power to create whatever it is that you want when you're conscious of it. If you're not conscious of the thoughts that you have, and that's the energy and the frequencies that go into the nexus, then it's going to be maybe the same patterns as the last relationship. It's maybe going to... it's not being, maybe another word is mindful, right? I use the word conscious because to me that's just conscious connection to everything. So, sorry, typo. No change comes from being conscious. I think you mean no comma change comes from being. No, I'm kidding. I got you. I got it. Yes, I agree. Okay, so I'm going to do one last question. Fear of diving deep into love. So that was kind of vague a little bit. I think a lot of people have fear of diving into, what does that even mean? I feel like we should even look up what the term means. Love. I think there's a lot of different terms for it. I think it's been overly, it's on too many t-shirts. It's just on too many t-shirts. And how do you know when you're coming from a place of love or not? How do you know? How do you know when you're coming from a place of love or not? So fear of diving deeper into love. Maybe it's like, what is the fear of diving deeper into love? What do I want to... Let's go with Starseed Transmissions. We're going all galactic tonight. That's really interesting. Yeah, for me, I was just like, secrets to a millionaire mind, and I don't know, maybe I will dive into that one for the fear of diving deeper into love. Okay, so fear of diving deeper into love, and I'll wrap up here in a little bit. So specific information for each and every situation is being supplied to you constantly by the source of infinite knowledge. That's good to know. Why not trust it? I'm going to read that again. Okay. Specific information for each and every situation is being supplied to you constantly by the source of infinite knowledge. Why not trust it? Your first impulse will always be, as it has always been, the programmatic instruction from your subliminal analysis system. Yes, the advice of your creator. It will be a direct message from your true self, the impulse of life, the gateway to all that you call heaven. It is the spontaneous spark of divinity as it differentiates through you into your environmental situation. It can assess and evaluate the factors present in any situation at a rate of speed far exceeding a rational thought process. You have all the pertinent information in the universe available simply by asking. What are we doing tonight? That's why we ask the books. When you are aware of your totality, the life impulse will transmit to you everything that you need to know in any given situation. Its message will always come as your first spontaneous impulse. Be attentive. That's like the whole definition of intuition, and like the whole purpose of like what this whole game of tap in to your intuition is. It's like, what's the question? Ask the question, pick up a book, open it, read it. What's the first thing that comes to mind? And that's the game, and that's fun. So how does that answer fear of diving deeper into love? We don't trust our intuition. We're not listening to our intuition. Our intuition will tell us whether we should be diving into love or not. Or, excuse me, I'm going to take that one back because that wasn't said correctly. Whether we should be diving into certain relationships or not. And your intuition will always tell you whether there is love there and whether love is present or not. Whether you're just trying to force it or create it or whatever it is. So be attentive. Always be attentive. Messages are everywhere. Books, music, anything like that. So, okay, before I sign off, see, just as I suggested. Yes. So before I sign off, does anybody have any more questions? But let's see, I've been, let's see. How is your gut feeling? Yeah, it's always your gut. What is this? Jonathan, hey, what's up? I've been envisioning taking my inner little boy by the hand and showing him how to enjoy this life. That's so perfect. Oh, I've done that work so much with people too. I love the, what did I just click on? God, I'm relatively new to this life. So I can't see your whole comment because if I hit see more, then it pops up a thing on here. But something about, yes, the inner work with your inner little boy, and we do work with change because this is the nature of the moment. I think that's perfect. I think everybody deep down has their inner little child, and you have to tap into that and ask it what it wants. Ask the child, the little girl, the little boy, whatever it is it wants. That's your intuition sometimes. That's the innocence and the purity. One of the books did mention that about like the purity of, that's your inner core intuition, source of your intuition, I want to say, or access to your intuition is that inner young personality that's still in you, not the temper tantrum one. Although all those emotions can come up for a lot of different reasons. Maybe you're having a temper tantrum because you're not listening to the inner child and the inner intuition. It's just a thought. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been enjoyable. And if it works, feel free to share it. Either way, if you guys ever have any questions, for me personally, you can always private message me. And if you want me to ask one of your questions, I always write them down on a piece of paper and then I ask on the next videos. So I'm happy to do it. You can do it at home as well. I'm a big fan of having everybody kind of learn new ways to listen to your intuition. I just think this is a fun game, and I like doing it, and I like sharing it with everybody too. And it helps me remind myself on tapping into that greater source that I know that we can get so crazy and stressed out and forget about. So these moments also help me get a little bit more galactic and a little grounded at the same time, and talk about love and relationships and all that fun stuff that makes me happy, and I love supporting other people with. So many blessings, much love. Love you guys so much. Have an amazing night, and I will see you on the next one.